Um,
all over again.
yeah, no, she has to join us next time. And I want to also point out, and we'll put this in the chat box. I talked about this before. It was posted on our site. But Hudson is actually doing this at no cost. He usually does this for folks for a fee, and that money he actually donates to a cause that's very near and dear to his heart. And we will post the GoFundMe page in the chat box a couple of times throughout the conversation. And Hudson, I'll let you talk a little bit more about it, but even $1 helps. So after that, I'll let you go.
Awesome. Just to thank you so much. That was wonderful, and you're so kind. So, and I feel the same way about you and your husband. You guys are always such a joy to be with. Can you allow Emily to share her screen just to make sure? I don't know if she already has that. So, and I think we can get started. I'm going to be kind of moving my computer back and forth because I'll sit and I'll get up. So, looks like we have 37 people here, which is great. So let's get going. Yes, one thing that I want to kind of start with is for everybody to understand that we're going to go through the 7 steps of the MREA, or the 7 levels, right? We're going to go through 1 through 4 today, and then the rest tomorrow. What we are doing here is talking about how Santana Properties team was built within this model, okay? So I'm gonna show you the slides of how the model is, and this is a class from KW. That's where I got the slides from, a lot of them. But I'm giving you my own experience, or Emily and I are giving you our experience, okay? So you're, you're not necessarily gonna find it in a book, but I just wanna be very raw and transparent and share where we have succeeded, where we have failed. Hopefully, you guys are going to relate to something and are going to be able to implement it, because that's the whole point. I would ask everybody to, if you can be in a private place, turn off your phone, concentrate. As Jen said, we usually charge to do this. We're not charging anything. My only hope is that you guys would actually give me your attention and respect that. So that would be great. Again, we encourage questions, and that's how I learn, is by the questions. Every time I answer a question, it sparks me something that either I'm doing well, or I'm gonna tell you the answer, but maybe I should go back and do that thing, right? That I'm telling you to do. So anyway, again, thank you all for being here. I want to introduce Emily Richard from my team. She's our operations manager, and she pretty much put all of this together, and her and I are gonna really interact back and forth, and hopefully give you guys a pretty good experience here. So yeah, let's get started. Oops. All right, so guys, I think you go back one. Yeah. So again, we're talking about the MREA model, how to net $1 million, right? I wanted to show you what my org chart looks like, okay? One thing to be very clear is that what the MREA is giving us is a model, okay? A model is something that you can base yourself on, and you might be able to make changes depending on your area. But to me, the most important thing for you to take out of that model is that model, in my opinion, is made for you to run the most profitable type of business. Meaning, all the research they've done is to make sure that you accomplish the goal that says on the book that if you're at this level, you should be netting 42%. Or if you're at this level, you should be netting 30%, right? Because a lot of you are not gonna agree on how this thing is set up. But the reason why this is set up this way is so you can be very profitable. Because one of the things that I like to say is, at least for me, there's only one reason why you should be in business. It's to make a profit. Now, your minds are probably going all over the place with that statement. What you do with that profit is completely up to you, right? You could buy a Ferrari or you could give it to charity. I don't care. But if you're running a business, it should be to make a profit. If it is to offer opportunities to people so that you can pay them more and so on and so forth. Wonderful. But if you're not making a profit, what is the point? Now, another thing I wanted to go over quickly is, because there's been a lot of discussion in KW about, oh, there's all these massive teams that are not really profitable. My opinion is that before you judge, you really should understand their strategy, okay? Not everybody is looking for cash flow. A lot of people are looking to build equity. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I'm gonna kind of make my computer screen a little taller here so it's easier for me to talk to you guys. What do I mean by that? If you are running a massive team, a massive business, right? You might not have a huge profit margin, but that business is now worth something, right? So your strategy might be, I'm gonna reinvest all my money and continue to grow this thing, pay myself a salary so I can pay my bills. But what I'm really building is this massive business that I'm gonna be able to sell it to somebody, right? So I'm not necessarily looking to cash in every year. I'm eventually gonna cash in. That's like what Barbara Corcoran did. She never made $75 million selling real estate. She made $75 million selling her company. Does that make sense? So keep that in mind before you're judging the person on the stage that has this massive business and you hear, oh, but they're only doing a 10% profit margin, right? Maybe that's part of their model, right? There's some teams at KW that are literally massive. They have billboards all over the place, but because of that, their profit margin is lower, but their business, their market share is worth a lot. Does that make sense? So anyway, I just wanted to clarify. For me, I really focus on that, what the MREA says. So what I'm looking at, by the way, Emily's mom is our director of ops. Should be clear, so you'll hear her name a lot. But when Terry and we look at our P&L every month, I'm looking for that 42% that the MREA tells me that I should have. So that's not, my business strategy is not, let's, be so big and have 50 agents and have a smaller profit because I'm looking to build something different. I'm really just focused on exactly what the MREA tells me. Does that make sense? So now, when you look at my org chart here, I like to divide it in kind of 3 buckets. One is the leads, which is, so we have Derek, our director of lead gen, and we have Vicky, which is our ISA. The middle bucket is the admin team, okay? And that's what all the wonderful people you see here listed. And then the third bucket is the sales bucket. So again, out of transparency, if you ask Emily, the things that we're really focusing on right now is to improve on these buckets. So we're really right now, Derek is working kind of like a marketing director / director of lead gen. We want him to really be a director of lead gen, right? And his job should just really be concentrating on generating good leads for our team and the ISA can nurture our database, so on and so forth. So what we are going to right now is to make sure that all we've built is solid and it has, manuals and has instruction. So if for some reason Derek decides to move to China, somebody else can take over his job, or he could do the job from China. Does that make sense? So again, I'm going kind of fast as far as the way ahead where we are today. But that's what our team looks like today. The one thing, if you know a lot about the MREA model, the major difference on my team is if you look at Victoria, which is our director of sales, you can see that our expansion agent in Miami, Aggie, is under her. Okay, usually, what the MREA is going to tell you way on level 6 or 7 is that you're going to have a separate expansion that's going to report direct to the CEO or the head of the team. Okay, the twist, and I want to kind of for you to understand, is that I happen to build a business in Boston and I decided to move to Miami, right? So I was running the team. As much as I live in Miami, I still sell in Boston. So we just have one meeting. It's one team. So when we added agents from Miami, we decided to say, you know what? It really doesn't matter. It's the same team. We're doing pretty much everything separate. I mean, everything the same. The only difference is our P&L, right? The bills and stuff for Miami, we're separating. But the way we run the team, the Miami guy joins our meetings just like the Cambridge guy, just like the Quincy guy. Does that make sense? So again, it's a little different than what the MREA is telling me to do. But again, that's what I was saying. It's a model, right? But in my view, that's the major difference. One other thing, just to be transparent up front, you know, I started a team in 2012. The new model came in, I want to say 14, 15, when they're talking about focusing a lot on showing agents, right? I don't have any showing agents. We have 4 full-time buyer's agents and 1 listing agent. In our market, we are on a $800,000 price range. I don't want my clients to be given to an assistant to have the face-to-face interaction. I want my agents to have the face-to-face interaction with their clients at all times. Does that make sense? So the leverage for us is not the showing agent model, it's on the admin side. It's really closing coordination and agent services and stuff like that, and sending gifts and all this other stuff in order for them to be able to focus to always have the face-to-face time with our clients. Does that make sense? But on the model, when I go through it with you, I'm going to talk to you about the showing agent model. But again, remember what I said. The reason why the model is set up that way is because that's really the most profitable way. And I'll explain it to you. So even though I'm not doing it that way, if I was, it would be a lot more profitable. All right. One other thing, I own 2 companies. And that's something that I think it's very important for you guys to maybe take a note and try to understand. I started in real estate selling, you know, I started at KW, and then 3 months later, I left KW to join a team. And then that's right in 2010. The economy was down. REOs were the biggest thing. So I started focusing on that. Okay. Long story short, I started my own real estate development company. So that is a huge source of business for my team. And it's very important. So, but my job on the team as a realtor is to find real estate deals. It's to help investors to flip houses, as well as my own company to flip houses. So the point I want to make with this, and I wanted to be transparent about that company, is that you should figure out your niche, okay? Our niche of Santana Properties team happens to be representing real estate developers. What I mean by developer is somebody that's really doing either brand new construction or a full gut renovation, not somebody that's just painting a kitchen cabinet. That's a home flipper, right? But you might be in a market where flipping houses is ideal and you just happen to love to do that, then focus on that, right? So on my case, I really wanted to help those investors. The advantage of that for me is that instead of having to have, 100 clients to do 100 deals, I only have to have 10, right? So, and the other point of showing you this is because I want you to understand how many people I'm interacting with. How am I able to run 2 different companies, right? So, and we'll get into that a little more. So, our story, we started, I moved to the US. Actually, this is kind of my story. So I moved to the US in 2001, came from the Amazon in Brazil. Fun fact, I went to high school in a town called Little Machete in the Amazon. So if you doubt the fact that I lived in the Amazon, my town was called Little Machete. So that kind of clarifies it.
Hudson, that's better than Big Machete. I like it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, see? Yeah, now you're actually making me question whether I should, I think Big Machete would have been better. But anyway, so I moved to the US. I literally left the airplane, went to my uncle's house and my brother. I showered and they asked me if I wanted to go to work. I said, sure. And I went to work literally within an hour that I landed in this country. So But why did I do that? In Brazil, I was almost 17 years old. In Brazil, I made 75 bucks a month. Not a day, not an hour, a month. Minimum salary in Brazil at that time was 150 bucks. My aunt paid me half of my salary because I lived with her for free. So when I showed up here, they said they would pay me $5 an hour. I was like, $5 an hour, that's wonderful. So, you know, that was my way of looking at things, right? And again, you're gonna see you can look at this trajectory, but I think one thing I would really want you guys to think about is, do you value what you have? Do you value the opportunity that you currently have? Do you even know how entitled we all are by just living in the US? Just by being here, do you realize how fortunate and also how entitled we are, right? Because you probably get pissed off if you run out of electricity. Oh, I can't believe National Grid again. You know, we're out of electricity for an hour. Well, most countries, you know, not most countries, a lot of countries, it gets to 8 p.m. Where I grew up in Little Machete, it's called Machadinho in the Amazon. At 8 p.m. every night, electricity is out until 6 a.m. the next morning because they had one generator for the whole town. So they would shut it off so they'll have enough oil for the next day, right? But the point that I'm trying to make is a lot of the times we forget how to value things. And that's an important piece if you want to build a big business. It's really like understanding what you do and the value and keep driving it forward. Because what happens is we get very comfortable, right? You start making good money, you just settle because you're like, oh, this is enough. This is great. Instead of thinking, man, what if I did more? What could I do if I did more, right? I'll go into this piece. Our team, and even pains me, I'm just being transparent to say this, but every house that we sell, 10% of the money from the top, not from the net. Terry, I don't even have access to it. Emily's mom writes a check to this account. That's our giving account. And I don't have access to that cash, right? So, but that forces me to, one, have to make a lot more money. Two, to also figure out how to help, right? Because that's an important piece for me. So, the other part is, so on our end, we are doing this, right? We're giving, we have a plan. Emily has helped us, and from her background, helped us really draft something to focus on. One of the reasons why I'm doing these classes is so I can help that cause, right? So usually I'll go teach anywhere for free, but really hoping that the donations will help us help these families in Brazil or help these families in our local community. The thing for our team is that we believe in helping our community. We, as a team, happen to decide that since I'm from the Amazon and that still is my community, therefore, that is part of what we do. Does that make sense? Just like we would give in Cambridge, just like we would give in Miami. So that's what we're doing. I think Jen is going to share the link, but usually I would charge $1,500 to teach a class. My goal would be that we could raise that much money so we can give back. There's a ton of people, especially now with COVID, that they're in desperate need. So anyway, if you guys can donate something, that would be awesome. If not, that's fine. If you donate and then you think the class sucks at the end, I will personally reimburse you the money. So don't worry about it, right? So if you're not getting the value. But anyway, let's get into it. This is the part, right? How do I make $1 million in a year? And that's where a lot of you are gonna get very frustrated, okay? So very simple. $1 million net, you divide that by 42%, which means you should bring GCI of $2,380,952, okay? And then Emily can show you all the math there. The bottom line is, if you're in a market where your transaction price point is $550, which might be very high or very low, depending on where you are, at $550, at a 3% average commission, you're gonna need to sell 144 houses. That's how you net $1 million. Very simple, right? Now, we can move on to the next slide, Emily. So you might ask, well, you know, that sounds like a lot for a lot of people. It is a lot. It is a lot of work. For depending on your market, if your market is 250, you're gonna have to sell almost 300 houses to net $1 million, right? The nice thing about this business is that you don't have to do it alone. And I would even say the beautiful thing is that you don't have to do it alone, right? You get to do it with a lot of people, and you get to improve a lot of people's lives, right? But these are the 3 topics that I want you to think about, right? Which is who do you need to become to get to that level? Go back, Emily.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
When do you need to grow, and how can you do it? So those are the 3 things that we're going to focus on. So on who do you need to become? Again, guys, there's nothing here that you probably never heard before, but you have to really think about this. If you want to be, name it, Gary Keller, Ben Kinney, you know, Lance Locan, you need to understand that, like, what are those people like, right? What kind of choices do those people make, right? And that's where you make your choices. You might decide that all you care about is money, and then you can sacrifice your health, you can sacrifice your family, you can sacrifice all these other things, and that's fine, right? Or you might realize that, yeah, I want to make $1 million, but I also want to have a great marriage. I also want to have great health, right? To be able to enjoy all of those things. So it is about choices, but the choices is not about something that you're going to do it in a month or in a week. It's what do you do every single day? What are the choices that you're doing every single day? So when you look in yourself and you want to envision this person, right? What does it look like? On this specific topic, guys, I would strongly recommend you to, there's this amazing audiobook called You Can't Hurt Me. Now, to be very transparent, it's a very strong book. The guy swears a lot, but it's incredible what this guy went through, and then talking about the choices and the transformation and like looking yourself in the mirror, right? It's a great book. It's a great audiobook. And the cool thing about the audiobook is it's an audiobook / podcast. So the guy, one person is reading, and then the person that went through it, they're having a conversation after each episode. But it's really powerful. And again, if you want to change, right, whatever your income is today, it's because of the choices that you have made. So if we're talking about how can I net $1 million, we have to talk about the choices. And you have to be able and willing to make different choices. Does that make sense? So when do you grow? You know, when you're doing everything, can you handle more? I mean, this is the part about being a realtor. When you're starting out this business, you're doing everything on your own. I mean, I remember the days I was designing my for sale sign. I was also installing my lock boxes. I was also making my Facebook posts, and I was doing all these things, right? I think the important thing here is that that's what it takes. In the beginning, that's what this job is. I mean, there's a bunch of team leaders on this call. You know, if you could really explain to somebody when they're brand new and fresh what the job really is, do you really think they would sign up for it? I don't know.
Not always.
Since you guys, there's 51 people here, I'm assuming you guys are all realtors. You already made that choice. So you might as well just keep moving forward, right? But the question is, how can you make sure you just focus on the right activities, right? Because that's really what's going to allow you to grow. And one misconception is that, you know, even when I show the org chart, most people look at it. That's how I used to look at it, and see that and be like, man, that takes a lot of work. Like, I don't want my life. I can't imagine how that person has time to do anything. Like, they probably are so busy all the time. They probably don't have a family. They probably can't do anything else because the business is so big. Where in reality, I probably have more time than I ever had. The difference is the quality of the things that I work on is so much higher than they used to be. Before, I used to deal with, I need to go install a lockbox, and it's a problem that needs to be solved. I don't deal with those problems anymore. My problems are on a much higher level. Does that make sense? So it's not that I'm busier than I was before. You could be as busy as I am or more by being an individual realtor or by running Keller Williams Realty International. And I think a lot of the people on this call knows Gary, and you can probably see that. Not to say that he's not a very busy man, but there's a lot of other realtors that don't do nearly as much and are probably way busier, right? Before we keep moving forward, any questions on this? Or Emily, you're looking at the chat, anything that we think we should answer?
I had a question.
Sure.
So I was actually talking to Chris Suarez, which was awesome, the other week, and we're looking at our KPAs and, you know, asking him what he does every day. That back to the habit topic. How do you look at it? So he was like, well, my structure is like off the chart, super good, positive, and that's how I built what I built. Yours is like super low. And he said something to me like, you're strictly pretty effective with your personality. And how do you work with your strengths and weaknesses? And like, how'd you break down how to build your weaknesses around you? Does that make sense?
Okay.
Strengths and weaknesses.
Correct me if I go in the wrong direction here, but I think, again, this goes back to the point of the model, right? You use this book, the MREA, as a model, but you get to build what you want to build, right? I never met Chris. I know of him, and I know he runs a phenomenal business. But I meet people that if you look at their schedule, it's like from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. or more, it's booked, right? If you look at my schedule, there's literally like 5 things in the whole week. It's just, I just by looking at a schedule like that, I'd be stressed out of my mind. So I don't run my business that way. I think the important thing, what I would suggest you to do is make a list of everything that you do, and in front of each item, put a smiley face or a sad face, you know? And it's as simple as that. And if there's a sad face in it, you either need to realize, hey, I need to get that skill set, right? Because that activity might be something that, you know what, it's going to take you a while before you can give it away. As an example, lead generation, right? You're not going to leverage lead generation right away, even though if you might hate it, right? But at least you know, like, this is not something I enjoy, but I need to acquire this skill, and I'm going to crush it. Even though I hate it, I'm going to crush it in order for me to get to the point where I don't have to do it anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So my view would be that. And again, when I got into real estate, I still love a deal. Like, I would see the realtors that were selling foreclosure. I'd be like so excited about it. So that's why I personally started dealing with investors, right? And because that's what I love to do. So I tailored everything towards what I enjoy doing, because at the end of the day, I want to be excited about, like even teaching class, even though it's kind of nerve-wracking sometimes, I love it, and that's why I disclosed right in the beginning, guys, I'm going to tell you what I've done. You might not agree with it, but that's how I did. Does that make sense?
Yeah, awesome. Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
We have one that came in, says, do you use CV for hiring?
Yes, we do. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we're going through CV with somebody right now. Now, do I use CV? In very few hires. So right now, Terry is going through CV on another position for our team. Victoria, Terry's our director of operations. So she's doing that for a potential admin. Victoria does that for every single agents that we hire. So I don't do it unless it's a leadership level. Does that make sense? But it's that I couldn't, I'm a huge, huge proponent of that. right, so this goes to the higher talent. Again, guys, this is how I built my business. So you might not agree with this, but I've always been the guy that had to look up to somebody, okay? So, and that has helped me big time, because the way I look at it, it's not necessarily about that person. It's just to think that's a human being that has done something, and they only have 2 legs and 2 arms, and I'm better looking. That's how I always think about it, right? So, but I like to picture somebody that has done it instead of trying to invent something myself. So you can move to the next slide, Emily. So this part here, guys, think of, when you think of somebody successful, you can change this photo with 1 million people. Now, Gary, I thought it would be too corny to put Gary Keller here. But he is somebody that could be on this photo, right? But you think of Bill Gates, that's somebody extremely successful. And just to go back a little bit, some of you might have some, negative thoughts about money. And you might think, why do I need, so much money? Even like the Bill Gates, you think the guy's the richest man on the planet. And you might even think of him as a negative, you might have a negative thought around him because he has so much money. But if you actually study Bill Gates, you realize that he does not even have enough money to accomplish his goals, which is to cure malaria and all these other diseases. His foundation does not tackle AIDS or HIV because they knew they couldn't afford it. So they went to all these other diseases that they knew they could actually make an impact, right? So again, on this idea of making $1 million, I promise you, if you have the right cause, you're never going to make enough money. You're never going to be able to help as many people as you want to help. But that's why you want to keep trying to do more and more. But now, this thing here that I want you to look at was one of the best lessons I've ever heard from Gary Keller, okay? What's the difference between these 2 graphs? Look at, Jen should know this, right? Jen, what is the difference between these 2 graphs? I'll put you on the spot. So what's the difference between, and that's how Gary used, 170,000 people, organization versus a 5 people organization?
Sorry, say that again.
I'll answer, Jen. I'll answer. It's the
Okay.
it's the 5. It's the 5.
The 5 people.
You're not supposed to answer. You're supposed to put her on the spot. So,
I know, but I think she was writing in the chat or something and didn't hear you.
Yeah.
Span of control, span
I
of
teach
control.
this, so I figured I'd help her out.
guys, but here's the important thing. It might hit one or maybe a few of you. It certainly hit me pretty hard. That's why I like to include this. When Gary drew this, it was a couple family reunions ago on a private mastermind. To me, it was like, it was incredible because, again, you look at this massive organization, at least in my head, like the stress kicks in right away, right? Because you think, oh my God, it's so much responsibility and blah, blah, blah. Where in reality, according to Gary, the difference between these 2 is the 5 people, right? Including the president, right? So when you look here, of course, Bill Gates would be included to this, but it's really like the size of your team is going to be determined by your leadership group. Write that down, print it, put it on your wall. That's what it is. If Jen wants to grow her market center, to have, I don't know, you guys already have like 5,000 people in it, but if you wanted more, it's really going to depend on who are the leaders that are part of it, that really are driving it, that are pushing it, right? And your job as the CEO or president is really to guide them, right, to the direction that you want. So, but I think that's a very important thing. Now we're going to go into the levels, right? So the first level of the MREA, and read this, it says, don't hire your way up. There are goals to master at each level. So when you are hiring people, one thing you want to think about is, where is this person gonna take me? Right? That's a very important question. Are they gonna take you to a 5 people organization, or they're gonna take you to a 1,000 people organization? Does that make sense? So keep that in mind. There's no problem about hiring somebody that's gonna take you to 5 people, right? Or even to 1 person, depending on the level. But you need to recognize that before you get so attached. Because what happens a lot when you're growing a team is that you're going to really like these people. You're going to really bond with them. And that might hold you back. That might prevent you from growing. That might prevent you from giving and from doing all these other bigger things. Does that make sense? So let's go into the levels. And Emily, feel free to tip in if, you know.
Of course.
So in the beginning, again, we have 50 plus people on this call. I'm assuming, I don't know if any of you know kind of the poll. Do we have a lot of brand new agents here? Anybody can answer that?
I think it's a good mix of people, Hudson.
Okay.
A
Okay.
good mix of different levels, actually.
Oh, awesome. All right, so level 1 is you, right? So you're the marketing guy, you're the closing coordinator, you're the ISA, you're everybody, right? It's just you. So, Emily, you can put the next. Yeah.
So your goal is personal productivity. That's where your focus is.
Yeah. So yeah, you're gonna show up every day and you're gonna do your best. And again, at KW, your TO is gonna tell you what your schedule should look like. What are the activities that you should be doing, right? You wanna lead generate 3 hours a day. You're gonna focus on all the things that your market center are gonna help you with. Now, when you do everything that you can do, and one question I get all the time is, when should I hire my first assistant, right? Some people will tell you, oh, you should hire your first assistant when you have 35 transactions or when you net a certain amount of money. I've met people that have hired their first assistant right away. Some of you might know Claudia Restrepo from Miami. She's incredible. She hired her first assistant right away because she knew, like, I'm just going to focus on this and I'm going to hire someone. And by the way, she is one of the few people in KW that actually run a 7-level team. Right? So the decision to hire your first assistant, in my opinion, should be when you're dropping the ball. So I'm doing all I can here, and now I missed a call from a client, or I didn't do the CMA on time, or I didn't, you know, the closing experience was awful because I forgot a date because I'm so busy doing all this stuff. In my view, that's the time for you to hire. The other big misconception is, a lot of people focus so much on the annual salary. They're thinking, oh, but hold on, I can't afford to, I don't have 35,000 or 40,000 or 50,000, depending where you are, saved in an account. Like, there's no way that I can hire. And they get so nervous, they end up not hiring anybody, right? In reality is, that person only costs you, 2 weeks, maybe 3 months worth of work, right? Because if you didn't hire the right person, you're going to know right away, and you're not going to continue to pay them. Does that make sense? Of course, now going back to the career visioning, that's why you want to go through the process with somebody, because you don't want to get somebody to either quit their job or tell their family how excited they are about coming to work with you, and then all of a sudden you let them go because you actually didn't explain the job properly. You didn't disclose what was important to you on your business. Does that make sense? Any questions on this at all? No?
I had a question. Well,
Go for it.
the first hire, how do you tell if they could run that 8-person team or 1,000-person team? Like, do you ask them?
Awesome. This is the thing. I also said they don't have to, right? But you need to be able to recognize that. So your question is, how do I recognize that? You're in my opinion, you're going to recognize that right away. Is this somebody that's taking the job from me? Is this somebody that's pushing me to go do more business? Or is this somebody that's coming to the office and saying, oh man, we're so busy. We're so busy. I can't handle more. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Because the person that wants more, you're going to see it. They're going to be like, hey man, I did all my job and you're supposed to be lead generating for my more business. And I saw you on the cafeteria talking to them.
Do you see it like in the CV, or do you have to be with them to see it?
The CV, in my opinion, helps tremendously, right? Because you're really going to understand them and they're going to understand you. But what you're really going to be able to tell is when they're working with you. We've been through CV with people, and literally on the first week, I realized, they're not going to work out, right? So I think what the CV does is really cuts out or makes your chances so much better. But at the end of the day, it's on the day-to-day, you being involved, you paying attention, and you're seeing it. But I'll tell you, talent, you can tell right away. Let me give you this. So again, on our personal, how were we able to build this incredible team? Well, my first admin, I had 2 people that did not work out. One was a person that one time, again, was my wife and I working together. I called this guy and say, hey man, I need you to figure out some balloons for our open houses. He spent the whole morning researching balloons and helium tanks. So I come up and he sends me this long email talking about helium tanks, where I'm like, I just needed balloons for Saturday. Like, you should have gone to Target and bought some balloons. Does that make sense? With helium tanks.
Yeah.
So what he did was he gave the job back to me, right? Which was like, if I asked you to do something, instead of you figuring out and doing it, you come back to me with all these additional questions, right? All this additional work. So now I have to do even more work. Does that make sense? So where my third hire was Emily's mom. And this is what happened. We hired her, and my wife and I went to Brazil for a month. And Emily can probably attest to that.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, how did we go to Brazil for a month? We didn't have an assistant to start with. So it's not like, we didn't have one. So when we hired her, we said, hey, Terry, that's right when we moved to KW. I had a Keller Williams coach already, even though I was working at RE/MAX. So which I have the same coach to this day, Mike Kranz from Florida. He helped me with the process to help us build this model, right, that you guys are learning about. When I hired her, and I showed her the RE/MAX office, and I said, hey, you need to kind of build this for us. It was literally as simple as that. So while we're in Brazil, she spent the whole month, learning. I signed her up with Monica Reynolds.
Not in real estate. She was not in real estate before that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
She did the Monica Reynolds Perfect Assistant program. I don't know if they still have that.
Still have it.
But the thing is this, I'm not an admin. I've never been an admin. My wife has never been an admin. So when I hired somebody, I expected them to be the admin. So when we talk about talent, she owned it. When we came back, we had an admin side of our business, right? Because she was that person said, no, you go do your job. I will handle this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. You can tell right away when the person is talented and they care and they want to really, really help you. So let's move on.
I would just say a caveat is that sometimes it's just not it just isn't the right fit. And or they're good to a point and then they get lapped by someone else. And I think that happens. Like they can bring you to 50 transactions, but then they hit a ceiling and then they get lapped by maybe even a new hire. So there are people that are great for building you from nothing to something, but then maybe they have a ceiling.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, a funny story about Emily. My wife calls Emily and tells Emily, like, Emily, Hudson's so amazed with you. I mean, I'm assuming it was a little different, but she's like, because when you ask him to do something, when he asks you to do something, you actually do it. And she's like, yeah, of course, like that's, you know, but in my experience, that's not how it works at all, right? So, I mean, that's when you see talent, right? But it's true. And one thing, a couple years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, at Family Reunion, Gary was interviewing, I think it was Tim Heil on stage. And one of the things they said, it's so true, is that the person, when it's you and this other person, or maybe you might have a 5-people team, they might be an A player, right? But that A player, let's say you have a 5-person team, and all of a sudden you grow to a 10-people team. That A player might become a C player, right? Think about football, right? In football, you know, Tom Brady, right? He just moved from greatest quarterback of all time, way better than Peyton Manning from you guys from Texas, right? Guess what? Is he going to continue to be the greatest forever? Probably not. You know, the Patriots didn't want to rehire him for the cost that he had to the team. It's just the reality, right? Somebody might be A at one level, and they all of a sudden might be a C. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to exit your organization. It just means that you might have to, in order to grow from 10 to 20, you might have to bring another person in. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yes. Appreciate
Awesome. So again, I'm going to kind of go quick on this because I feel like
I think we covered a lot of this.
Yeah.
So we can just move on to 3.
So level 3, this is very, very important. I feel like that's where the mistakes happen 99% of the times in the beginning is it's you hire this rock star admin. Just think about this. It's as simple as this. What would a rockstar admin do for your weekly schedule? The way I look at it is they're going to give you 40 hours a week. What could you do with an additional 40 hours a week? That's what it is. Oh, how can they give you 40 hours a week? Oh, all this stuff that you're doing, you no longer have to do because that person's handling it, right? Now, what happens is you went from having 30 closings to now being close to 40. And then you hit that ceiling again because now you're still doing a lot of these activities. On my case, I was still doing the marketing. She was handling all the admin stuff. I was still doing the Facebook posts and all this other stuff. Where most people make the mistake is that they all of a sudden go into agent. Now, Jen, can I put you on the spot again?
Sure.
Okay. What is the most expensive hire you can make?
A bad one.
That's a good one, but that's not the answer.
The wrong one?
No, the most expensive hire you can make when running a real estate team is hiring an agent. Why is that?
Did you say real estate agent? It cut out.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I mean, you got to pour a lot into them.
But on top of that, how much do you have to pay a real estate agent?
The pay is pretty pricey. You're looking at least 30 to 50% of the commission or more, depending on your business model.
Yes. So guys, when I said in the beginning, this model is set up for you to run the most profitable type of business. That's why you have to follow it. That's why here it doesn't say go get 2 buyer's agents. You know why? Because a buyer agent costs you a ton of money. Where you can go hire an admin and keep all that money. Now, it doesn't mean you're gonna underpay an admin, right? The reason why an agent is expensive is because that person is taking all the risk. They might come work for you and make nothing. But if they work out, they're gonna make half of, right, where you're bringing, right? Where an admin, they're getting a salary every month. And you can, incorporate bonuses, health insurance, all this stuff, right? And depending on your personality style, you might much prefer having that versus, having everything on the line, right? But again, remember, an agent is the most expensive hire you make. I really mean it. Once we go through this, you're gonna understand it. So before you hire an agent, you should really get to a point where there's absolutely no way you can take a new client. And that's the thing that this slide doesn't show you, is that you should be the one handling your clients. Until you get to the point that you cannot handle the clients, that's when you start adding agents to your team, right? So your lead admin is gonna go out there because she's so busy now, in her 40 hours a week or his 40 hours a week, they just can't handle more work. And they're like, Hudson, I can't do this. I need help. Great, go get help. Now, the proper help you should get is go find a closing coordinator, right? Whether it's a third-party company or you hire somebody in-house. So your lead admin can focus on all these other things that happen on your team, and this person just gonna focus on the contract you close, right? And I mean, if you are in the Austin Market Center, you're gonna have something like that in-house, which is, you know,
Ooh.
Will. Yeah.
Jen is just like showing off here just because we don't have one.
You're making us jealous.
I'm telling you, that's such an incredible value. You know, like in Miami as an example, that's something we're gonna come across very soon. And I don't want to necessarily have to bring somebody in. Or if my market center was offering that, I think it's a tremendous value. So let's go to the next one, Emily.
Can I say something there real quick too?
Sure.
A lot of agents, and I'm sure it's no one on this call, their first go-to is, I'm so busy, I'm going to hire an agent. I just want to make sure that people really, really hear that. I was one of those expensive agents on a team, but I had good admin on the team already to support me. And the other thing that makes them expensive is if you don't have good admin to support them, they will leave you. So not only are they expensive on the front end, but they're also expensive on the back end when they walk out the door and you've invested time and money into them.
Yeah.
A lot.
And again, and there's so many other things. I mean, we could spend hours talking about and then they could leave and take all your business with them, right? Like there's all this other stuff behind that you have to be very careful before getting to that. But honestly, usually when it hurts your pocket, most people react. So I think, and I can show you, we might have a slide talking about that, but think about this guys, do the math on your commission, right? Let's say you're in, I think he has a slide and we can talk about that very quickly. All right, let's look at this quick. An admin, again, I don't know the position, right? But $40,000 is a pretty good range of that you can hire somebody. That's a fixed salary, 40 hours a week. You can expect, and you should expect, a 3-time return. Meaning, if I gain 40 hours a week to my week, could I go and generate an additional $120,000 in gross commission income? Right? Depending on where you are, might be, let's say your commission is $10,000, which in our case, it's like 20. So I know there's a lot of folks from New England, a lot of them, I think, from Massachusetts on this call. If your commission is $15K, right? And an admin, maybe if you say a little more, but it costs you 40 to 50K, you don't really need to do that many transactions to be able to cover that, right? But how many more transactions would you be able to do by having that, right? Now, so again, if we thought about $10,000 commission, could you do an additional 12 transactions if you had a full-time admin working for you? 1 transaction a month? I believe so. I don't believe so. I know that for a fact because I've done it. So now on the agent side, you're giving that person half of what you make. And on top of that, you're still going to have to hire somebody to help them out. And then they're going to call you and say, well, I'm not getting enough leads, or I need a new for sale sign, or I need this, or I need that. So it's not even 50%. It's more than 50%. Again, commission split, but on this example here, and that's usually what people do is bring on a buyer agent right away and all of a sudden give them 50% of their commission, right? In one agent, if you did that, it's going to cost you twice as much. If you look on, one of the things that I love about KW is that we have open books. one of the strategies that I've used to grow my team is to look up my competition. So I would go on the reports and I would always see who's above me, who is the chief, who is above me that I can get to next year. That was always my plan.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see how much money that person makes, right? So if you go on my team, you can see how much money all my buyer's agents make, which is most of the cases a lot more than our admin, right? So you're giving up a lot by having agents. So you should really think about before you bring that on. And again, it will get to a point where, yes, that's all you have to do is bring on more agents to your team. But in the beginning, that could be a crucial mistake. So
can I ask you a quick question? Yes.
Yeah.
I do have. First of all, it's so encouraging to see a Brazilian fellow, a successful Brazilian fellow here.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, and just regarding the previous slide, just a quick question about the compensation. When you say 50% to the agent, is this like what we see usually? Because I've already heard also about salary being paid to buyer agents. So I just would like to understand a little bit more in detail that part.
Okay, so that's a great question. Thank you so much. Where are you from in Brazil?
Rio de Janeiro.
Oh, cool, awesome.
Yep.
Love Buzios. Right, so compensation on our team. So the MREA in Gary, they'll tell you should never pay more than 50% to an agent in order to run a very profitable business. One other thing that Gary will say is if you're providing the leads and stuff, but if all of a sudden they're bringing on, their own business, then it really doesn't matter. But when you're bringing the business, you should never pay more than 50%. On our team, our split is buyer's agent would start at 40%. And after a certain amount of transactions, they're going to go to 45%. The lead agent's always going to get the 5%. So our team is always getting 50% of the commission, right? So when I talk about 50%, it's because according to the MREA, as a team, you should always keep 50%. So I use the other 50 to compensate however it can be attractive. Does that make sense? So now the listing agent on our team gets 35% commission split. Again, a lot of people might pay 20%. A lot of people might pay 25. Some people pay even 10%. But that really depends on what is the job like. Is that listing agent just going to appointments every day and getting them signed and passing it on to somebody else? Is that listing agent, converting the appointments and setting them up and doing CMAs and doing all that stuff, right? On our team, the agent is really pretty much doing everything. Now, he gets a ton of referrals. There's a ton of other value, and we provide staging and all this other stuff. So for our model, 35% works well. He gets to make really good money, and it's still profitable for our team. One thing on my specific team is that, and I think goes back to a previous question, is that talking about a niche, right? My niche was always investors. So as soon as I got to a certain point, and we'll cover this in a few slides forward, I decided to give up the families, and I decided to focus just on investors. So I brought on a listing agent to handle all the families, and that's what he does on our team today. So anyway, but let's go back to this because I think we're kind of running out of time.
We've got like 25 minutes, but so just a reminder, level 4 is in 2 parts, so we'll go through part 1 and then part 2. So here we go.
All right, guys. So now, when I was just talking about the most expensive hire you can make, which was agents. See how on this level, what the proper thing is, if you want to be profitable, is I was by myself. I hired a lead admin. Then, I hired an admin. That admin became a lead admin. I brought on a closing coordinator. Now, I have my marketing and all my admin stuff covered. So I'm really like just pounding the phone, setting up appointments, going on listing presentations and stuff. Now, guess what? I have so many clients that I need help with the clients, right? So what this model is showing, say, hey, instead of you going to get a buyer agent, go get somebody to assist you with your buyers. Now here on the model, it happens to say showing assistant. And this is the part that I want you to understand. I think I would circle assistant with buyers, right? Because in some markets, the showings is really what takes time. If you have a market that has a lot of inventory, you need somebody to help you with showings, right? So you might give that client and then introduce it to them and go over. In our market, the inventory is so limited, and most of the showings happen during open houses, that a showing assistant has no value to us, right? But that's why I understand. But what you really want is an assistant for your buyers. Would you agree with that, Jen?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, Jen, you represented buyers for a while, right, on our team?
I did, yeah. And I hired a showing assistant, and they did a lot more than the show.
So how much impact did that make on your business?
Oh, huge. I mean, I think the time that you can get back to focus on the money-making activity, which is getting more clients and servicing the clients that you have at the level that you're expected to serve them so they stay with you, doing the things that they expect from you, like negotiating their contracts. There's so much more time in the day when you have somebody great helping you do the showings, and taking that time-consuming piece off your plate, which isn't the money-making activity a buyer agent or an agent should be doing forever.
Exactly. So guys, and now think about the compensation. If I'm bringing in $10,000, I mean, let's use you guys, the Austin markets, and what's the average commission there, Jen?
About 12,000.
Oh, even better. So see, but you're looking at $12,000 every time you represent a buyer on average. Do you really need to pay somebody $6,000 per transaction for them to help you show houses? No, you don't. Actually, because of HDTV, you can probably get somebody to do it for free because they just love seeing houses now, right? but the point here is that instead of me paying somebody half of my commission, I could, one, have them on a salary, right? I could agree and say, hey, I know I have all these buyers all the time and I really do my job, so I'm always having buyers. You could literally hire somebody that's licensed, depending on your state, of course, and just put them on a salary and give them a small bonus every time. Or a lot of teams will give them 10% of the commission, right? You know, or you might use an agent in your market center and say, hey, why don't you help me out with showings and I'll pay you a certain percentage of my commission on a referral fee and stuff. I am personally not a big fan of that, because I want to build something and I want them to have my standards and I want them to do it the way I want them to do. And I also feel like that could create a conflict. You know, they might try to steal that client from me, right? I don't know. But long story short, I think the key is, instead of hiring a buyer agent, go get an assistant. Whether and how to figure out what you need assistance with. You look at where you're dropping the ball and what's really causing you the most pain. That's what I'm saying. It might be for showings, depending on where you are. It might be replying to emails. It might be setting up appointments. How much of a pain is it to go on MLS and call agents to set up appointments for you? I'll tell you, I don't know about Texas, but in Florida or in Miami, it's a huge pain. These people will not call you back. It's unbelievable. So again, figure out what that pain point is and get assistance on that in order for you to be very profitable. Now, you notice the stars on this, right? Is because you want, ideally, this is going to be somebody that you can see becoming an agent for your team, right? You can see that, man, you can start this way. I want to train you, but my goal is to make this thing so big. And I want you, if I make this so big, you're gonna have the opportunity to become an agent and then earn whatever the commission split is. I'll talk quickly. On the ISA, it says lead manager ISA side. It's really the same thing. The difference is on sellers, right? What do I need assistance with, right? The ISA means inside sales agent or associate, right? OSA means outside sales associate, right? Big difference, guys. And again, figure out what your pain point is. As an example, some of you might do really well in expireds for sell by owners, all that kind of stuff. What I like to call now business. Some of you might have most of your business coming from your database, which I like to call future business. I happen to prefer like 100 to 1. Future business. I built my business on future business. I will help an investor today that's going to give me a listing a year from now. Sometimes I'll help them for free just to guarantee that listing a year from now. But then I have enough people that I know next year I'm going to have 100 listings, right? So OSA or ISA, the inside sales is the person that's going to help the leads coming in. And most importantly, that's the person that's going to really help you stay in touch with your database, right? And again, KW has so many incredible opportunities if you want to, when you get to that level, to go learn from, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But there's many, many amazing teams that have like a well set up ISA department. But the key is, if you're the guy that's cold calling for expireds and for sale by owners, and that's what you do, and you know that, hey man, if I added a person to do this next to me, I could give them a percentage of my commission and I could have twice as many appointments. Could that be a very smart hire? Absolutely. Does that make sense? Now, on my team,
We did this differently.
this should be very transparent. On our team, we didn't follow this progression, okay? And again, if I knew what I knew today, I would have followed this progression, right? So, but unfortunately, I didn't know that back then. So basically, on our team, a lot of our business, like 70%, comes from our sphere, our network. So our marketing director, okay, what I realized is this guy is so talented. He's focusing on generating all these internet leads for us. When Gary said, let's get rid of Zillow, that's what I did right away. And now I need to generate my own leads. So I got my marketing guy that was really focusing on photos and postcards and stuff to say, man, we need to generate leads. So he started focusing on that, right? I already had an ISA, so it was kind of a mix. So the thing that we did differently is, unfortunately, we didn't really follow this progression. We got to a point where we kept struggling with the ISA side, and we realized, man, we have this guy generating a bunch of leads. The model says I should have a lead manager, where in reality I had a marketing director. So what he was doing was a whole bunch of nothing. He was like all over the place, helping us, doing brochures here. There was no plan. There was no coordination. We weren't like saying, hey, there's a goal of generating this many leads. There's a goal of doing this. And then when we hired our ISA, it was kind of the same. The model says I should have an ISA. I have no idea what I'm doing. You know, she's kind of making these calls. I'm not seeing any results. Where now I realize I need to have him hold her accountable. So if he's the one that's generating the leads and she's the one calling, he needs to be the one making sure that we're getting the results every month. Does that make sense? This is one of the current things that we're really working on right now on our team, right? Because what I want to make sure is that these 3 buckets that I mentioned in the beginning are really, really well set up. But on this level, what you want to make sure you have is the proper help so you can do more business, right? And that's what it says here. So eventually that ISA is going to become a lead manager. And then on the next level, you're going to hire another ISA to go under, right? So you have another slide, Emily?
My husband. There's so many changes at this level.
Yeah.
So let me just.
But again, this is the thing about this model, right? A lot of the people, when you read the book, you might look at level 7, and you might say, "Man, I want to be a 7th level agent, so I'm just going to look at a level 7 and start feeling the holes." And it really doesn't work like that. It's really like a progression. So what you should be looking at is, what level am I in? If I'm on level 3 and I want to be very profitable, how can I make my team look like this? And when I say that, guys, that's what I did. A couple years ago, KWRI asked me to teach a class for, going from solo to 7 level agent. Here's the funny side note. That family, and this was for a mega camp, the family reunion of that year, my favorite class was going from solo to 7 level agent. So I'm sitting there, Joe Hogarth and Monica Reynolds were teaching this class. But I'll tell you, I was sitting there the whole time. In my head, I was like, there's no way anybody's doing this. I bet there's not a single person sitting behind me that is doing this. I bet none of these guys on stage are doing this. And that's when I keep saying the point of this is that it's how to run the most profitable business. At the end, that's what Joe Hogarth said. He's like, guys, this is set up this way for you to be profitable, right? So if you did it this way, you'd be more profitable than you are today. Well, guess what? 3 months later, I get invited by KWRI to teach this class for the international agents. So I go teach this class. They gave me the slides. And the cool thing about the class, it was that only for agents outside of the US. So these guys had the most basic questions. I'm talking like, what's an admin kind of thing? What does that really mean? What does an admin really do for you kind of thing? And the amazing thing is I'm answering these questions. And after I taught the class, it made me realize, man, and I had put my org chart at the end, and I'm like, man, I'm teaching this class, and my org chart looks nothing like this. And I've been telling people for years how I follow the KW model, right? Where in reality, you look at my org chart and you look at the KW model, it looks very different, right? So what I did, which was transformational, is I went back, I printed the level that I was at, I put it in front of my desk, and I started filling the gaps. It's like, okay, these are the changes that we need to make in order to be on this model. And what I realized is that every time I ran into a wall, instead of going back to the book, I became creative, right? I decided to, create my own way of doing things. Where in reality, I could have just gone back to the book and literally followed it. Like, oh no, right now it tells me I should go get an assistant, right? A showing assistant or start my ISA side. But instead of doing that, I just became creative, right? So again, when I'm telling you guys, it's stuff that I did. So I went back, and that's when, again, Derek became, instead of a marketing director, he became the leads manager, right? Victoria really became the director of operations, and we started really filling in the gaps. Huh?
Director of sales.
Director of sales, I'm sorry. Yeah, Terry's the director of operations. So, but anyway, if you, depending on the level that you're in, I would absolutely encourage you, doesn't matter where you are, put your org chart next to what the MREA is telling you that you should be. And take a hard look at it and see whether if you're doing is really what you should be doing, or it's the easiest, it's the easy way, or if it's actually something that you should make a change, right, in order for you to progress. On this thing, again, on this level here, eventually your showing assistant is going to become a lead buyer agent, right? And then they're going to grow of having people assisting them with showings. Does that make sense? Any questions on this so far?
We do have some questions
Sure.
that showed up in the chat. We had someone ask, what's the biggest fail you made as you followed this model? Maybe you can
Biggest fail that I made, man, I made so many fails. I think one of the thing that comes to my head right away is I've promoted many people too fast, meaning I really wanted for them more than they wanted for themselves. So I've had many cases where somebody that we thought was great and we kept thinking, no, we need to think ahead and give this person an opportunity. And then by giving that person an opportunity, we put them in the wrong seat, and all of a sudden it fell apart. Their production went down and it just fell apart. So to me, I think that's a big thing. It's a lot of the times, again, we get so connected with everybody that you want them to grow, you want them to do more, and they might be doing really well at their level, but as soon as you put them at another level, it falls apart. So that's definitely anything you can think of, Emily. You've seen some mistakes that we've made.
I mean, I think you talked about like the lead generation end of things already, and yeah, I think those are good examples.
Another thing, guys, is, so again, I've been in KW for, I don't know, I started KW in 2001. I left and I came back in 2013. So it's been, 8 years or so. And I've had a coach for a long time. I still have it. And I just hired this additional coach to help us kind of figure out these buckets. And it's like mind-blowing. And it's absolutely mind-blowing. I can't tell you how big of a deal that is. And again, it's maps. And I'm not saying this because they pay me. I'm just telling you, like, instead of you having to figure this out at this level, right? Get a coach, because what happens is that person, and make sure you get the right coach, but that person can really help you put the stuff together. So when I say I've done all of this, I've had a coach behind me for the whole time, right? And that was huge as far as like keeping me on track, but also showing or introducing me to the people, right? Again, if you think of an ISA, I mean, there's so many teams that are doing this at such a high level that I'm certainly not that team. So you don't call me for ISAs, you know what I'm saying? But you can call many other people. So as about the mistakes, a lot of people tell you that you should be very creative. I actually even heard that from Gary Keller a couple weeks ago. I don't want to be creative. I think creativity might affect your business big time if you don't do it at the right time. So I think in the beginning, you don't need to be creative. Just follow the freaking model, and ask the people that are doing it. Instead of having to reinvent the wheel, just use their wheel. Any other questions?
So we have someone asking about the ISA, who do they call? What are they doing all day?
Yeah, so the ISA, and this is the program we're working on, but the ISA should be calling, it's inside, right? Any leads that are coming in, right? So again, I'm at this level, I decide now to call an ISA, hire that. Probably the reason why I would hire that person is because all of a sudden I'm getting all these leads, I'm getting all these, people are going on my website and requesting information, and I literally am not responding. Why? Because I'm in my car going to another appointment. People are calling me and I'm not getting back to them. Why? Because I'm in my car going to show a house, right? So where that ISA comes in is to handle all of that. So anything that's inside, which includes your database. So what we are doing is there are any leads that come in, go to the ISA from 8 to 5 p.m. Anything after that goes to the agents that we have, right? But again, if you're at this level, what do you do with an ISA? Get that person to call. Now, a lot of the times in the beginning, you might not have enough leads for that, but you still want to make sure you're converting the leads that you're getting that you don't have the time to do. What you also do is have that person do both jobs. So they're going to be an ISA to take care of all your leads, but in the beginning, they're also an OSA, which means they're also cold calling for sell-by owners, calling expireds, doing all those activities, right? So you put them on a schedule where they're really lead generating every day, whether the lead is coming in, whether it's to touch your database or whether it's outside.
We have a couple more questions, Hudson. What's the time frame in regards to this level and the 5, or I'm guessing maybe these levels and the 5 years?
Okay, so it's a great question. I think that, so this whole idea of 5 years is when I started in real estate in 2000, I started the Santana Properties team in 2012. By 2017, we are already doing $1 million in profit. So that was kind of my point of the 5 years. It's because I was able to do it in 5 years. And trust me, guys, I'm from the Amazon in Brazil. English is my second language. I came from the restaurant industry. And when I say I came from the restaurant industry, I want you to understand, my friends were the back of the house, meaning like it was really the people that could not afford to buy a house. It's not like I was, I knew all these people from the restaurant industry. So when I got into this business, I didn't have any of this stuff that a lot of you have. So now, very transparent, my wife had all of that. She had this database. She was in the business before. And we were able, and to this day, we still get a lot from her database. But my point is, if I was able to do it from the time we started our team to this point, within 5 years, I think any of you can do it. As far as the timeline is only up to you. How fast can you go? Are you using both, or are you a high school runner? I mean, it depends on you. And, and some people need to go much faster than others, right? It's really up to you, but can it be done in 5 years? Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the Locan group and you look at their progression, he'll probably say on this call, you can do this. He'll look at this and be like, you can do this in 2 years, right? I mean, it really depends on that.
Mm-hmm. Who is your coach that is helping with the buckets? Emily.
Emily Baker. You guys probably know her. Do you know her, Jen?
Who's your coach?
Emily Baker. She's awesome. But anyway, yes. All props to her. I do have to disclose, I mean, we've only had like 4 calls so far. But the mind-blowing piece that I'm talking about, and it goes back to all of the stuff that I've been saying, is that the stuff that I hired her for, she knows it. It's not, she's not telling me the theory. She's not, again, I think Jen said this in the beginning, there's a lot of classes that you're going to go. As a matter of fact, yesterday, I saw this thing on Facebook, and this guy was like, I'm teaching a class on how to become a mega agent. And I'm like, I mean, you've been an agent for 5 years and you're not a mega agent. Like, why are you teaching a class like that, right? I mean, and I get why, because you're teaching eventually learn. But the point is, if you're going to ask about ISAs, go find somebody at KW that's crushing it at that. The reason I'm very impressed with Emily is because the stuff that I want her to help us build, she's done it. Like, she's done it. Like, it's not even, like, for her, I was like, oh, let's do this first, and then let's do that. She's not talking, we're not talking about feelings. We're not talking about how I was tired this morning and I didn't make my calls. And that's not the coaching that she's doing with us. It's really like structural. And that's the other cool thing about MAPS. Depending on where you are, there's so many different types of coaches that can really help you, right?
We've got a couple more. We just have like 2 more minutes though, I know. So what type of marketing do you do to attract new clients?
So, and by the way, guys, that's why we're going to continue this tomorrow. There were 50 people at some point. I hope most of you guys can come back, but that'll tell how good this was. If we only have Jen tomorrow. So it was funny when Emily, I hired this other new coach, and she's like, okay, so you guys want to be the Ritz-Carlton, right? And I was like, no, actually, we're not the Ritz-Carlton. We're not charging like the Ritz-Carlton does. We're not trying to pretend to be the Ritz-Carlton. What our team is the Hilton or the Marriott. We want to service that clientele that makes pretty good money, young professionals and stuff that are really busy, and we can really take the burden from them, right? And we offer all these services. We'll send a carrier and stuff, but we're certainly not pushing to be the Ritz-Carlton. But when I say that is because I know exactly who we are. So what do we do to get those kind of clients? We do a lot of events, right? And again, now with COVID, the whole world is upside down. But what got us to this point is one very important piece. We have quarterly goals. Everything that we do on our team is quarterly. It's not yearly. As a matter of fact, in a week or so, we're going to do our quarterly meeting again. So we focus on quarterly goals. Now, getting clients. Every quarter, we have a client event for the clients that bought and sold with us from that quarter. Okay, and then we get sponsors and stuff. The restaurants that we use are really nice, farm to table restaurants that are bringing in, and then we're inviting 25 to 30 people because that's really the clientele that we service. And those people love that, right? We do a lot of touches with our database. So we're out, like we have our pie event. We have, in the winter time, we send them ice. No, not ice, ice melt. We send them, salt. That's what I meant to say. So and we say, something cheesy on the box of salt for them. But like we stay in touch with them. We also have a pretty strong social media campaign. So we're always putting stuff up on social media. We have a pretty strong Facebook marketing campaign. Now, if you drive to Cambridge, we have a couple billboards. So, but the basic thing is I've been focusing on our database. I will talk a lot about this tomorrow, but it's really about value. So what is the value that you're going to provide to the client? What's going to cause them to call you back is value. In your area might be, I will buy your house if you don't sell it, if I don't sell it. In your area might be, I will give you 1% back at the closing if your state allows it, right? You need to really figure that out. And I'll go into this. Our team, at one point, we started doing a lot of radio advertisement. When that happened, that's when I really learned who we were. Because all of a sudden, we started getting all these calls that we never had to handle before, and this type of different clientele, and it showed all of our flaws. But it also made us realize who we were as a business. And that's when I say, like, we're the Marriott. We're also not the Days Inn. Does that make sense? So you should really understand what you're going after in order for you to tailor your marketing campaign. Jen, are we done at this time? Do we have another 5 minutes to answer some questions? How is it on your...
Yeah, I may have to go off camera, but I will let you guys stay on as long as you want to answer and ask questions. As Hudson said, please come back tomorrow. We'll have another hour and a half tomorrow to continue to go down this path. And I just wanted to say before you start answering questions that we so appreciate you being with us.
Oh, thank you. And guys, I mean, this is, we tried to go very quick, and this is very like basic stuff. Tomorrow, we're gonna dive in more into like the issues, like the intricacies that we had, like, oh, transitioning from this point to this point, what was the pain point? Like, we'll give you more of that tomorrow. This is really like trying to give you this general idea of what the team should look like. But then tomorrow we're gonna dive deep into issues and stuff, because I agree, you should learn from our mistakes, not from how cool my suit is, right, or how good we look. It's not that. It's really, where do we fail?
It is very handsome, by the way.
I got can you notice the red stripes and stuff? Any final questions, Emily?
We have a few. Do you use a marketing company for ads or social media? If so, who do you use?
We do not use a marketing company. We use our own. Again, Derek on our team, he's our director of lead gen. He does all of our ads. We are fully committed to command You know, we made that decision months ago, I don't know, October of last year or something like that. When did we fully move into command?
September.
So I've been a major pain in Gary and Josh team's ass because I want this thing to be better. And I'll tell you guys, full transparency, my conversation with them is this: it needs to work for this model. This model here, command needs to work for. Sorry if I shouldn't be saying this, but that was my thing. It's like, if we're running a team on this model, therefore it needs to work for this. If you have somebody doing 2,000 units, that's a whole other conversation. This model wasn't set up for that, right? And I believe, I'm really excited that I think right after Mega Camp, the little kinks that were like big rocks are going to be resolved. So I'm really excited. But I'm saying this because all our Facebook ads are going through command, and it is true. Because they're going through command, the price is a lot cheaper. I can't tell you exactly, but I mean, maybe tomorrow I can get those figures, but I had Derek before we were doing directly through Facebook, and once we switched to command, it really dropped the price for whatever reason. But
we're hearing about a 3-to-1, 2-to-1 to 3-to-1 spend inside and outside, because Facebook looks at you as 160,000 agents versus you and your business and how much money you spend.
Yeah, so we are doing it through command, and we do everything in-house. Where again, you know, we were spending over $10,000 a month before on Zillow, and we stopped that over a year ago because we realized that they're trying to get us out of business. And you know, as much as I was profiting from it, I don't want to feed my, you know, the bear that's going to eat me in a couple months. So. Any other questions, Emma?
Yes. Besides your coach, do you have any favorite books, programs, or anything that help you stay focused on your goals?
Awesome. Guys, my favorite book is, Emily knows. Which one is it, Emily?
Is it Atomic Habits? Is that the one?
Yes. But the book that got me to Atomic Habits was, what is that? Now it's escaping me. It's from Darren Hardy. What's the name of his book? The Compound Effect.
Yes.
The Compound Effect is just a very simple, amazing book. That book I read multiple times. Full transparency, I'm not a reader. It's something I have to really force myself to do. But definitely, if I could encourage you guys to read The Compound Effect, it just tells you really that at the end of the day, again, that image that you have in the mirror, you're only gonna get to be that lion that you saw, right? You're the kitty cat and you're seeing a lion. You're only gonna become a lion because of your actions, your daily actions, right? If you are waking up early, do you have more time for your family and stuff? Yes. If you're eating healthy, are you gonna have more energy? Yes. You might not think that donut impacts your ability to become a millionaire, but it does. So that's kind of what the compound effect shows. It's really like every single thing that you do or that you did is really what made you what you are today. So, but the cool thing about if you go from that book to Atomic Habits, it really like tells you how to do it. So the first one is like why, and the other one is how, and it's incredible. So, but now you could read a bunch of books and do nothing. From reading Atomic Habits, I started waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, which I did this morning. I go for an hour bike ride and exercise. I read a book, at least 20 minutes a day. I'm now, spending more time with my kids. So those are the things that I implemented from that book. That like definitely very transformational. So
awesome. One more question that I think I skipped over on accident. What are your standards around lead generation? What does accountability look like on your team?
Great question. So here's what I found, okay, is that I personally believe that any agent can do 24 deals a year, right? 2 deals a month. you're in real estate, you're working on a team, you should be able to do 2 deals a month. But what I have found on our team is that, and again, I'm not talking about a specific person, I'm just talking about my experience overall, is that when you have a $800,000 price point and your commission is really about almost $20,000, people get pretty comfortable. Like, you make over 100 grand, a lot of people will take the foot off the gas. So when you talk about standards, we used to say our standard was 2 deals a month, where what we realized is, and Terry and I did the math, is that our standard on our team today is that if you're going to join our team, you have to do 13 closings a year. Okay? And,
I think it's 14.
no, it's 13.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
My chart is wrong.
Yeah. So, which is basically 1 deal a month. Why? Because at that number, I did the math. You make really good money, we make a profit, and it's fine. If you want to do 20, there is an incentive. If you want to do 36, there's more incentives, right? So now, how do we have the accountability around it? I don't know if Emily could show it quickly. What our would be too much of a pain, Emily, to show.
Which one do you want? What
Like
do you?
the team, like our weekly meeting kind of.
Oh, yeah, I can. Let me just grab it. Sorry, it's just loading.
No, that's okay. I'll call you off guard. So, and I'll keep talking about this, but so now on a weekly basis on our team, the minimum amount of conversations that we expect you to have is 50. Okay. It's you know, we're gonna encourage you to do 2 appointments a week and at least 1 new client a week, right? And we count agreements signed. So for buyers or sellers. But the bottom line, what I really care about is that you're gonna close a minimum of 13 deals a year. So that's really the number I look at. And the way we do it is then we look at quarterly. If there's 4 quarters in a year, you need to be doing a certain amount of closes. So this is how the agents report on our team, right? Now, the accountability is whoever, open houses are very important for our team. It's a huge source of business. Whoever has the most amount of agreements signed get to be first in line. So that's how the priority starts. So basically, you know, really the accountability is that you got more agreements signed, you get to choose the open houses. And therefore you have a higher chance of doing better and better.
I can go to the previous slide, if that, so you can show. Oh, wait, it's actually a few back. So you can show the quarterly goals and everything.
Yeah. So now, right? Yeah, it's right. Oh, right there. So now, if you see on the side there, we do quarterly meetings. So we track everything quarterly, right? So actually, this quarter, our goal was to do like 60 transactions. And we got to 2 weeks ago, we decided, hey, let's up it to 70 and see if we can get there. Didn't work, kind of far back. But, you know, you can see quarter
that got pushed.
Quarter 3, our goal was to sell 59 houses. Not our goal, what we actually did. We closed 49 million in volume. This is, again, closing pending within quarter 3. But what we do is we always look back the last 2 years. So what we want to do is always track, because our business is very seasonal, guys. So what you should be comparing is how I did July last year versus this year, how I did July 2 years ago versus this year, right? 2018 was our best year ever. And kind of quarter 3 is always our biggest quarter. So that quarter we did 50,932,000. This year we're at 49 million something. We had some deals that got pushed, but that's actually what closed, right? So 2019, we did a lot less. So, and then on the agent side, we have their goals. They are the ones that tell us the goals. What we do is we add them up, right? So I always like to say it's called Santana Properties team for a reason. We really work as a team. Like, you tell me you're gonna do 6 closings this quarter, I'll tell you we're gonna do this many, and we add everything up, and that's how we focus, right? So, and then you can see here how I'm personally not doing very well this quarter. I'm trying to, let me see. Can't see this. Mine is what? I said I was gonna do 18 and I did 9. And by the way, guys, I only work with investors. Did something happen in the last 3 months that might have impacted investors?
Couple things.
Yeah, right, COVID. You know, particularly in my area, I work with condominiums. Do people want to live in condominiums right now? Or do they prefer a, white picket fence house, right? So anyway, but you look at this year, keep in mind, I live in Miami. All these 42 transactions that I did are in Boston. And I was personally directly involved with them. And then you have everybody else on the team there. So up to date, the 2 people on our team, Maggie and Aggie, are the newest agents on the team. Again, our expectations is in a year, they're gonna sell a minimum of 13 closings. So, and it looks like they're on track to do that. Is that the question? Did I answer it properly?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the person who asked it was here, but yeah, it was just about accountability and.
I think let's do one more question and then we meet again tomorrow. Anybody else has any questions?
There's one last question on here. It says, how do you put on a piece of paper to a buyer or listing agent what you expect from them?
How do you put it?
We have our standards.
How do you put it? It's that simple. This is what I expect from you, period. Sign, can you do this? Sign here. If you can't, you're basically saying that you shouldn't be a part of this team. Guys, again, we are showing a model, but it's your business, right? This model should help you, give you guidance or where you need to go. But the interior pieces, right? And that's why I said when I'm talking about an assistant, somebody might need a showing assistant, somebody might need a personal assistant, somebody might need an email assistant. It's different, right? That's the part that you can do however you want. On the listing side or on the buyer side, we are like very clear on what we need because we grew our team because we had more business than we can handle. I should have said this in the beginning, but the whole thing about this, guys, is that you grow your team when you have more business than you can handle. You're gonna hire a second assistant because you need a second assistant because you can't handle the business. Not because I just met this person on the street, they look like they need a job and therefore I'm gonna hire them and hope that they're gonna bring business to our team. That's not how it works. When you hire an agent and just assume that that agent is gonna bring business in my opinion, it's a big mistake. You need to hire an agent when you have more leads than you can handle, right? Like that's the progression, and that's the important thing. It sounds very cool nowadays to have a real estate team, and you see everybody advertising themselves as a team. But in reality, most people are just a group of people that are not making any money, right? So you should grow because, man, I have all these agents and now I don't need, I have a new open house. I don't have anybody to cover this open house. And the numbers are showing that for every 10 open houses, I get 1 really good closing from. So if I've had 2 open houses this year that nobody had time to do, I, have lost 2 closings.
That's something that's different about our team, and that's an important component for us is because we work with so many developers and have these listings from Hudson, our buyers agents get buyers at our open houses. They run all of our open houses for us, and that's how they meet buyers. So they also have to study our listings, but it's worth it to them because it's a great avenue for them to get a bunch of really great buyers.
Yes, and we call those open houses, the unrepresented buyers, for us, they're considered leads. So we call them leads that the team provided. Because in our view, if we didn't have that listing, you wouldn't be able to do that open house. Therefore, we provided that lead to you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I think that
Hudson,
was.
this was amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, guys. So again, thank you for having me. I hope that you guys can make it tomorrow, and then we're gonna dive in deeper into this again.
Absolutely. Same time tomorrow. And Hudson, can I share your contact information with everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. Emily, we had a slide and we ended up skipping it. So you wanna? Yeah, you have my contact info, Mallory.
I do.
Yeah, if you can put it on the chat box, maybe. But absolutely, feel free to contact us. I'm very easy to find on Facebook as well. So
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you guys so much, and we look forward to tomorrow.
yeah, thank you guys. Have a great day.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye.